We're facing dramatic changes now. We've got to have a government and estates that's fit for purpose.
It doesn't really matter much on what the public want.
I want change. I want there to be something different.
What I don't want to see is Guernsey Referendum a flop.
Here we go.
Whether you believe Guernsey needs a change or not, whether you even plan to vote this week or not, this week marks a milestone in Guernsey's political history. Its first ever referendum, the first time a decision like this has been put directly in the hands of the people. But to make that decision, we need to know what our choices are, so let's examine them.
Hello, good morning, sir.
It's been one of the most outwardly visible campaigns ahead of this referendum, Option A. But what is it? Well, Option A is island-wide voting in its purest or most extreme form, depending on your point of view. You see, right now Guernsey State has 40 members. 2 of those are ordinary representatives, and that won't change under any option. But what Option A will mean is every Guernsey voter gets 38 votes each, 1 for each of the 38 deputy seats.
It's an insult to the intelligence of the people of Guernsey to say they can't elect any candidate. They've got already elected an electoral district, so they might like Miss Bloggs from St Peters, but they can't vote for her, whereas anybody can stand anywhere in the island. And it's just an insult.
But can Option A work practically? Around the world, there are places that operate as just one single constituency, including small jurisdictions like Gibraltar.
The decision made in respect of Gibraltar was not to split Gibraltar up into districts so that each individual elected owed themselves to every single voter.
But Gibraltar's assembly is a little bit different. While Guernsey deputies stand all as individual candidates, Gibraltar has the P word, party politics.
The party system is in effect almost Darwinian natural selection. It allows that competitive streak in each of those competing for either the post of chief minister or post in a cabinet or indeed a post in the parliament to pit themselves against others, and the public is the Darwinian determining factor.
But Option A's supporters say they aren't all gunning for party politics.
Party politics is not what I would favour, but political associations. I mean, I'm a member of a political association. I'd never want it to see, during my time at least, it develop into a party, like the Labour Party or the Tory Party, where you've got to vote, otherwise you're going to be in a particular way, otherwise you're going to be kicked out. I don't want that.
If Option A promises dramatic change, Option B looks to preserve the status quo. A vote for B is a vote for keeping the current electoral system.
Option B is the best option because it's proven, personal and best. It's proven because it's stood the test of time. It's evolved over a great length of time to be what it is now. It's personal because each deputy has to represent their own district, has to get to know people in the district, as well as dealing with their island-wide responsibilities. And it's best because we've had electoral experts tell us that it's the best way of electing our deputies.
If you voted in Guernsey's last election in 2016, then this is how you did it. It's an electoral system that splits the island into 7 districts. You vote for your deputies in your district and your district alone, meaning you get 5 or 6 votes depending on the size of your district. It is a system that has evolved in recent decades with significant reforms in 2000 and 2004. But Option B's campaigners argue the essentials of their model have stood the test of time. Their biggest challenge is arguably convincing voters who are unhappy with their government that a change in the electoral system won't lead to better politicians.
I would say to them, stand for election yourself. The way to change the way the States works is to get in there, be there, make the changes that you want. The way we vote people in will not change the way that people behave within the States.
If Option A is full island-wide voting and B is the status quo, Option C sits somewhere in the middle.
Option B, the existing state, has really gone a bit stale, and I think there's a desire amongst many people to try to pull in better candidates and raise the level of debate, and that's what I think Option C can do. option A can lead to chaos and is extremely dangerous, I think.
Option C offers a mix of island-wide and local representatives. You'd still have 7 districts, and you'd be able to vote for between 3 and 5 deputies standing in your area. But everyone would also have 10 votes for 10 island-wide representatives. And you don't have to go far to find a similar model in action. Jersey also has island-wide states members. There they have 8 of them and they call them senators, while the rest of the assembly is made up of parish and district representatives. But it's a system that has itself been called into question. Sir Philip Balash has presided over that system as bailiff and sat in it as an elected official.
There are some people who are attached to the idea of an island-wide representation because in the original conception, senators were regarded as the senior and more knowledgeable members of the states. I don't think that is any longer the case.
But Guernsey's option C is not identical to Jersey's, and importantly in Guernsey, the island-wide and district elections would be held on different days.
But certainly it means that people know who their 4 deputies are, and those deputies have been in touch with their people. So that remains and is in fact possibly improved by the fact that it's a smaller number. But you've got, before that election, you've got the 10 elected island-wide who will be accountable and will have to put their points of view forward, and that will open up and raise the level of debate on island issues.
For the last 18 years, we've been voting for deputies in one of 7 districts. What option D does is consolidate that to 4 larger ones, meaning instead of 5 or 6 deputies, you can vote for between 9 and 11 who'd represent your newly enlarged constituency. We don't know exactly how the boundary lines will be drawn for option D's 4 mega districts, but it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect one covering St. Peter Port. District number 2 might then take in all of your southern parishes. District number 3 might cover the northern parishes of the Vale and St. Sampson's. And finally, number 4, the west, but it would have to be a much bigger western district than what we have right now, stretching perhaps all the way from here up to Cattell.
What I think option D gives people is real choice and a proportionate vote share, and I think that's what people want. I represent a very small electoral districts. I get re-elected with about 800 votes. People in other parishes lose out with 1,200 votes. I think people want to get rid of that, what's seen as an inherent unfairness in the system.
Perhaps the quirkiest option, option E, would do away with districts altogether. But rather than voting in a full assembly all at once, elections would be held every 2 years for a third of the House at a time, meaning deputies would serve 6-year terms instead of the current 4. And it is a model that exists elsewhere, specifically in the United States Senate. And who better to explain how that works than ITV's other Robert Moore? You know, the one in Washington.
What we have is a third of the US Senate being elected every 2 years. And the purpose behind that, the intention of the Founding Fathers, is to try and keep some sort of expertise within the US Senate, to give it some stability and continuity.
And could it work for Guernsey?
Well, look, Guernsey is looking at a number of constitutional and electoral options. I think all we can say is that the United States is in a totally different place to Guernsey for very obvious reasons. This is a country of 328 million, not 63,000, and really American politics is an exquisite compromise between states' rights and the federal government. So that is what drives American politics. That's what the Founding Fathers were trying to balance back in 1789.
Yes, it's safe to say the Founding Fathers probably didn't foresee Guernsey's 2018 referendum. A referendum where option E has had the toughest run-in of all at hustings and debate. Deputy Matt Fallais has taken up the role of defending it, even though he himself says he's not necessarily a supporter.
What I'm saying really is directed at people who want all deputies to be elected on an island-wide basis. If they do, I think they should prefer option E, because it's a much more practical way of introducing a full form of island-wide voting. It requires voters to cast up to perhaps 12 or 13 votes from maybe 3 times as many candidates, as opposed to casting up to 38 votes.
Options A through E all offer something different, from the current electoral system to absolute island-wide voting and plenty in between. The choice falls to the voters in the island's very first referendum.